It was in mid-December 2019. My girlfriend and I decided to do something different that Christmas. We planned to treat ourselves to a long weekend away just before Christmas Day itself. That way, we'd be back in time to see family. We got ourselves a remote cabin to get fully into the festive spirit. We settled on a remote Airbnb site in Colorado, which was around an 8-hour drive from where we lived. The journey itself wasn't that bad. We set out early morning so we could reach our destination by late afternoon, which would give us the evening there. Upon arrival, we met up with the owner, an older gentleman who owned the site. He handed us the keys and explained the location of our cabin. It was a little further out, as requested, so we could feel secluded. The owner mentioned it was pretty quiet at this point, so the cabins around us were pretty much empty anyway. With our location now known, we headed off to our cabin. As we parked up, it was cool to see, as neither me nor my girlfriend had stayed at a cabin in the winter before. We unpacked our stuff and took in the beautiful scenes that surrounded us. Snow was everywhere. Although cold, we loved it. It was getting on, and we had not ate yet. So now settled, we took a drive back into the nearest town to get some food. Upon arriving back at our cabin, we were both exhausted from the day, and seems I'd done the majority of the driving. I was ready to chill out. We got ourselves comfy and decided to have an early night. It was just past 1:30 a.m. I remember distinctly, as that was when my girlfriend woke me up explaining that she could hear a sound in our cabin. Adjusting to my surroundings and trying to wake up, I listened out for what she was talking about. As I listened in silence, I soon began to hear what sounded like a light tapping, borderline knocking, from inside the cabin. I couldn't quite make out what it was, but my girlfriend, now creeped out by it, wanted to know the source. In all honesty, I too wanted to know. I got up, opened the bedroom door, and slowly walked out into the hallway, listening for the source. As I scanned around the downstairs cabin, I could faintly hear the knocking, and it sounded like it was coming from the window next to the door. I turned on the light in the hallway as I was now concerned at what the sound was. But as I turned on the light and walked down and over to the window, the sound had stopped. By the time I had gotten to the window, I couldn't hear anything anymore. I peeled back the blind and looked out into only darkness. I couldn't see or hear anything. It was then I noticed just by the window there was a branch hanging down from a tree at the side of the cabin. Its end hung right next to the glass. I concluded that must have been the tapping on the window from the motion of blowing in the wind. Other than that, my mind at ease, I headed back upstairs to tell my girlfriend the source of the sound and that there was nothing to be concerned about. The following morning, we were up at a reasonable time, ready to head into town for some festive activities that we had planned. It was just as we were leaving, and I opened the front door. I noticed it. There were footprints in the snow just outside our cabin. As I noticed them, I realized that they traveled from around the side of the cabin, the side where we had heard the tapping on the window in the middle of the night. I looked around, trying to see if there was anyone around, but we were the only two, apart from the other cabin further in the distance, but that was empty. So the footprints were a mystery to me. I assumed there was a reasonable explanation for them. Maybe the owner checked on the cabins in the morning. I played it off, as I didn't want to get my girlfriend worrying, but she was less convinced than I was. After her eventually agreeing with me that there was nothing to be bothered by, we had soon forgotten the whole thing, as we were enjoying the activities that we had booked. It was late in the evening. We'd been out all day. Before heading back to the cabin, we got some food and stopped at a store and bought some drinks to take back with us. It was near dark now, as the sun had set. We pulled back up at the cabin, and as we headed inside, I could see in the distance a dim light or glow from the cabin up the hill. That cabin was vacant, I thought. Someone new must have arrived today. We weren't the only ones in the area now. Anyway, we continued into the cabin to settle in for the night. After having a few drinks and enjoying the rest of our evening, we were settled in bed. Again, it was in the early hours. I looked at my phone and it read 3 a.m. This time, I must have been in a light sleep as I woke before my girlfriend. And what woke me was the strange sound coming from inside the cabin. This time, it was no light tapping or knocking. This was the unmistakable sound of movement coming from inside. I sat up, listening, trying to get my bearings, but as I listened out for the sound, I again fell upon silence. Just as I was getting up, my girlfriend woke and asked what I was doing. I told her not to worry, and that I had just heard a slight noise and I was going to see what it was. I didn't want to lie. She sat up, and I know saying this only concerned her. I made my way into the hallway and looked around the cabin, and as I did, instantly, my heart began to race. As I looked down into the living area, I could see the front door was open. Even though the cold air brushed past me, it was the sight of the door wide open that sent chills down my spine. Not only that, but as I looked closer, there were wet, snowy footprints heading right into the cabin. Someone had been inside, or worse, still was. I immediately headed back into the room, quietly telling my girlfriend to be quiet and put on her shoes, grab her phone, and follow me to the front door, and that I thought somebody was in our cabin. The color drained from her skin as I told her, but she was quick to do as I said and grabbed her phone. We walked into the hallway and the silence was deafening. I told my girlfriend to wait by the front door whilst I checked the cabin. My fists clenched, I checked in the kitchen, my palms becoming sweaty as I felt the adrenaline rush through me. But there was no one. The living area was empty. I made my way towards the bathroom as I slowly pushed the door open, gritting my teeth. As it creaked, I slowly took one step in, looking around. As I was about to fully enter, I froze to the spot, my eyes widening as I noticed. In the reflection of the bathroom mirror was a huge, dark figure hiding behind the shower curtain. This figure was near 6'6" tall and standing behind the curtain as if hiding and waiting for me to pull it back. Seeing the sheer size and the fact that they were hiding and had broken in, I trusted my better judgment and ran as fast as I could towards the front door, telling my girlfriend to get into the car. As we did, I couldn't help looking back, expecting somebody to be chasing me. Completely freaked, we drove away from our cabin and notifying the owner immediately, who was at first questioning the time that we were ringing him. After explaining the terrifying ordeal, the owner agreed to come and check it out with a local officer. We drove back to the cabin to meet with the owner and the officer. What they found still creeps me out. Upon inspection of our cabin, it was empty. They found our belongings we left had been ransacked and certain items stolen. But the most disgusting and fucked up thing was, when they checked the bathroom, where I saw the figure of the person hiding, they found human feces smeared across the walls and mirror. It was found, upon inspection of the other cabin, where I'd seen the light on earlier that night, that it had been broken into and trashed. Someone had been squatting in there for what looked like days. The same person was suspected to have broken into our cabin when they knew we had occupied it. Whoever that person was clearly unstable, not only to rob us, but to smear their own feces across the wall is crazy. I'm just glad I never pulled that curtain back, as who knows what I would have been met with, or what they would have done. It's safe to say we didn't stay another night and asked the owner to issue us a refund. That night was a moment that honestly scared me, and I don't plan on staying in any secluded cabins anytime soon. I don't know who was behind that curtain, and honestly, I don't want to know. No matter what time of the year it is, there's always freaks out there, so always be careful. This happened around Christmas 2017, and it's a night that will always be implanted in my head for how scary it was for me. I worked at a car showroom as a sales consultant. I'd been there for 4 years, and every year we had a work Christmas party. Every year it was different. Our manager would always plan something fun for us to do, and it seemed this year he had outdone himself, as he and the company had paid for us to attend a Christmas ball. It was a massive Christmas event called Christmas Party World that was hosted at an exhibition center where companies would pay for their staff to have their Christmas parties. Along with going to this event, we were told it would be fancy dress. Of course, as you could guess, it would be festive themed fancy dress. The party was on Saturday the 16th, so a week or so before Christmas. I was getting ready and putting on my outfit. Being a female, I chose probably the most common outfit you would expect and had decided to go as Mrs. Claus in a cute outfit with candy cane style stockings. Simple, but the easiest option I could think of. A few of us met at my colleague Mark's house as we decided to have a few drinks beforehand and get a taxi to the party together, whilst the rest of our colleagues would meet us there. It was around 7 p.m. when we arrived, already in good spirits and excited for the night ahead, as just seeing the sheer scope of the event, it looked fantastic. The exhibition center was all decorated out, fake snow all over, Christmas-themed displays everywhere, turning the main rooms into what you'd expect a real Christmas grotto to look like. It was great. As we settled in and watched the live shows and event they had going on, I spent most of my time with Mark and Kelly, my 2 closest work friends. But as the live entertainment was finishing up, we all began to mingle with each other in the dance and bar area. Obviously, it was packed as it was such a busy event with loads of companies also having their work parties at the same time. I mentioned to Mark and Kelly I needed to find the restroom. Kelly offered to come with me, but I said it was fine as I could see she was talking to somebody she'd just met. I told her I'd be back soon, and on the way back I'd stop at the bar to get us some more drinks. As I headed to the ladies' room, they were further than I actually thought as I searched my way through crowds of dressed-up Santas and snowmen, but I finally found them, just in time as I was feeling a little tipsy and dying to pee. The restrooms were outside the main hall we were in. As I came out, I noticed there was a bar outside the hall also. It hardly had any queue, and I thought to myself, great, I just get the drinks there and save me queuing inside, then make my way back through. After studying the drinks and ordering what I thought sounded best, it was then a hand tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around to see who it was, but as I looked to my right, no one was there. I turned back to my drinks, and it was then I noticed a guy dressed as Santa in a full white beard, standing right next to me to my left.
"Got you,"
he said. It was him who'd done the old tap me on the opposite shoulder trick.
"Looks like you had the same idea as me. Avoid the crowds, get the drinks out here."
He laughed. I smiled and told him great minds think alike as I tried to make small conversation whilst I looked for my card to pay for the drinks. It was then the guy offered to buy my drinks for me. I politely declined and said it was okay. I couldn't really see his face behind the beard, but he seemed to smile as he said, "Okay, no problem." As I was about to pick up my drinks and leave, he then asked me for one big favor. He asked me if I could please watch his drinks while he quickly went to the restroom, as all his friends were still inside the other room and he didn't want to leave the drinks unattended. I'm a friendly enough person, so I didn't have any issue with that and said it would be okay. He then walked off towards the bathroom while I watched the drinks. As I waited, I began to feel all hot and drowsy, pretty out of it. All of a sudden, I felt a lot drunker than I thought I was. I don't know how long I was standing there, but it felt like I went from tipsy to so drunk in mere minutes. My vision began to glaze, my eyes feeling heavy. It was then the guy dressed in a Santa outfit came back over to me. He asked if I was okay, stating I didn't look so good. I couldn't think straight, as I remember saying I didn't feel too good and I needed to find my friends. The guy then replied he would help me find them, but the room was so packed. Maybe he could call one of them for me. I looked at my phone, but I couldn't see straight to text. I couldn't really see straight, so I asked him to find and call Kelly. He took my phone and searched for the number. At this point, we had started talking as he held on to me. I couldn't get my bearings. I remember asking for Kelly when the guy said he had spoken to her on the phone and was taking me to meet her, that she would meet us outside as she was looking for a taxi to take me home. My heart began to race. I didn't feel myself. I could hardly speak, and I was with a stranger I didn't know. His grip got tighter on my arm as he walked faster. I couldn't walk straight, and I didn't know where we were heading. It was then we stopped. We were outside. I was next to a car. I felt like any second I would pass out. The man told me to get in the car. I remember asking him where Kelly was. In a broken up reply, I just about made out in a deep voice,
"Kelly will be here. Get in the fucking car now."
Even in the horrific state I was in, I knew this wasn't right. My chest was pounding as I felt scared and clueless at the same time. I wasn't in control and I didn't know what was happening, and fear consumed me. I didn't know this guy, and he clearly had bad intentions. I tried to walk back, but as I did, the man grabbed me again. I couldn't scream. I couldn't even speak. I felt like I was going to pass out. It was then I heard a deep yell of someone running towards us. The grip of the man let go of me as I fell onto the floor in complete darkness. The next thing I remember was waking up in the back of an ambulance with my stomach being pumped, tears rolling down my face. I was scared and confused. I felt awful, and I panicked. I didn't know what was going on. It was then I looked to my side and I saw Mark. His face said it all as he looked scared and concerned. What I found out next made my skin crawl. Later that night, after I'd regained some sense of bearing, Mark and Kelly by my side, I was told that I was spiked. The man, dressed as Santa, had snuck something into my drink while I was at the bar. I was completely out of it. It was only by pure luck Mark had left the hall and seen the man walking me outside. And with Mark seeing this, he quickly intervened. He saw the man was trying to drag me into a car. As he ran over, shouting at the man, he quickly jumped into the car and got out of there. As I collapsed onto the sidewalk. I don't remember that part, and that scares the hell out of me. The man was never caught. No one could even say what he looked like apart from he was dressed as Santa, like hundreds of others that night. And sadly, Mark couldn't see the plate on the car. I dread to think what that disgusting animal would have done to me, or if I would have even survived that night. I am so thankful and owe my life to Mark. He really did save me that night. It's the worst I've ever felt. Not in control of myself. It's sad that at Christmas time, I will always remember that night. If you take anything from this, just remember, that is how quick you can be spiked. It can happen to anyone, so please, be careful and always be aware of your surroundings. Merry Christmas. And that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please let us know by liking the video. It really helps us out. And don't forget to subscribe to Horror Motives and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. If you have any comments or suggestions for future videos, let us know down in the comments. Until then, the fear lies within.